Welcome to the Midwest Moguls Show, where we talk all things business, real estate, and entrepreneurship. Let's dive into today's episode and make business enjoyable again. Welcome back to the Midwest Moguls Show. We have Joe and Brennan in the studio. We're doing a quick recap so far on the year at hand, 2025, how things are going, all the shit storms that have come up in the past 28 days, not to date this podcast, but for those of you listening, that's kind of what's going on. And then for those of you watching, we appreciate you watching. Hit the like and subscribe button. But kind of jumping into things. So recently, I have a list here. I just wrote out some stuff before the podcast. Kind of what we've been experiencing, the problems, the pitfalls, the miscellaneous stuff, what we've seen. Just, I guess, to first approach things. So, Brennan, you were recently at a property, and the pipes were frozen.
Sure was.
The water in the toilet was frozen. So elaborate on that a little bit for the people watching, listening, and explain kind of what was happening there.
Yeah, so we own a property, I'd say about 45 minutes away, and just dropping off paint for one of our tenants who also lives in that city. And mom had sent me a message saying, hey, swing by this place. So I'm like, yeah, sure, fine, no problem. So swing in there. Unlock it, check it out. A little dirty, but there was a business ran out of that side, so kind of expected that. Walk in, it's those electric thermostats that we have for the baseboards. They don't work.
Like electric baseboard heat is what you're talking about.
Yeah, electric baseboard heat. And for the viewers at home and listeners too, don't install them in your house. Whatever you do, please.
Not very efficient.
Yeah.
If I have to say so myself.
It was set to 75 in there, and there was still ice in the toilet, like a thin layer on top.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, it was bad. So I'm like, all right, well, that's a problem. So I turn on the another like in radiated heater for the bathroom, and I turn that on, and it's running. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll just come back Saturday.
Once it dethaws.
Yeah, come back once it dethaws on Saturday. And it was actually pretty nice here in Wisconsin for it being a Saturday. Yeah. I'd say it was like 37, 38.
So above freezing.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of
which is kind of a bummer because I was actually going to go skiing on Saturday too. So I had to run up to another job site in Rochholt, and then I swung into this property, and just water pissing in from this toilet. The broken toilet line. It was so bad, Joe. And I call Carter. I'm like, hey, we have a problem. And I just immediately shut off the line to the line. Yeah, the line to the toilet. And then I went downstairs and then shut off the main water line to that side. And I talked with our tenant next door. I'm like, hey, do you still have running water? And she was like, oh yeah, what happened? I'm like, well, pipe fucking broke. And I feel like if any of your stuff is in the basement and it's damaged, like, let me know. I feel super bad about it. We'll take care of it. And she was like, oh, I'm not worried, which is obviously best case scenario. And she even said in her unit too, just with the way her wall faces and stuff, she was even having some issues with her washer and dryer.
Oh, freezing up?
Yeah, freezing up too. So yeah, that was a problem. So had to send a message over to our property management company and be like, hey, do something.
Yeah.
And that's where like so we had this issue happen before on that unit. The same exact thing happened. The pipes froze in the bathroom. And that's when the electrician installed like the heater in there, and it's specifically for the bathroom. So obviously that wasn't on, and it was 20 below zero here in Wisconsin. So it just obviously, given any amount of time, things can freeze pretty quick. And if it's in a small, whatever, 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch water line, then they just crack, and then water pisses out everywhere, and then you have hundreds or thousands of gallons just dumping nonstop.
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you, but I filled out all the paperwork to hopefully get our bill reduced. So
that's good.
Which you think they would have just called immediately if they would have saw like that? Or
that's the hope. But I know like a lot of those scenarios, they don't even like some of the water companies. Well, especially with it happening on the weekend, like they're not going to notice it. And sometimes I know in the city of Oshkosh, and depending upon the municipality, they have like automated calls come out like, hey, you've went through 1,000 gallons of water in the last hour. Something might be running at your property. Yeah. That would have been nice to have in this instance, but.
Which we even had at a place I previously worked at. We would have public works guy on call all weekend.
Yeah, it's smart because it's like, what the hell do you do? And now that's like, if you can, I guess moral of the story is make sure to check on vacant houses when they're, or vacant properties for that matter, when it's really cold out, or even in extreme heat.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if something goes missed for any amount of time, it could result in huge issues, or whatever the case is. Or
house up in Wausau is a primary example of that.
Well, I know. And it's, and luckily I think that one's like there's 2 furnaces there. So that's a positive.
Yeah. Right.
So it's like, if one goes out, you still have the other that can kick in and at least keep things warm.
Relatively warm.
But it's like nonstop. Like, some of the issues lately are just so annoying. They're frustrating. It's like to the point of frustration, annoyance. And that one's specifically a rental property. But we've had like several things lately that, and we'll transition into this topic of just annoyances, frustrations that come with owning several properties or working on several properties at any given point. And we've done a lot better job recently of not taking on the major projects and just doing like quick renovations. But anytime you're holding something, you run that risk. And like, we still have the job up in Wausau. For any of you guys who've watched the YouTube videos or have listened to us on the podcast talk about it before, I think we bought it September of 23. So we are 15 months into a renovation, 14 months. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a long time.
And it's in, like, for that one, we had mold issues, which is fine, but the mold issues are remediated. There's nothing there anymore. However, the city inspectors are adamant, and I understand this, they want a clean air test. So what that means, especially on the mold remediation side, is, okay, you need to take out all the material, the moldy material, or encapsulate it or whatever, if it's surface mold, and make sure that the particles in the air are not there anymore. So then they have to run an air scrubber, which is basically a fancy term for like a humidifier or something like that.
Yeah,
that's
like
what it looks like.
Air filter.
Yeah, exactly. A large air filter, a commercial grade air filter. So they're doing that, but then the city is making us test like the crawl space area, which isn't even habitable. Like, no one would ever be able to use a crawl space to live in. And so Brennan and I were up there.
If you wanted to punish your kids,
oh yeah,
down there.
But it's just like such miscellaneous stuff that the mold remediation companies have never. They literally told us, we've never had to do this in the past. But like, going on that topic of, okay, some of these municipalities, or the inspectors at the municipalities, I should say, they might not be as experienced as what maybe a house flipper is, or a rental property owner, or whatever the case is. And they always look at it from the lens of, we need to protect the next occupant of the property. Right. So I get that, and I get why they're making all these requirements, but it's adding, again, the project was done a month and a half ago. We're still just waiting to list it. And once the air scrubbers are out, we get a clean air test, then we can list the property. But before that, we just have to kind of wait. And there's still a few things on the exterior that need to be patched up or taken care of. But again, it's just the holding time associated with that.
And do you think they're being so diligent with, I guess, the testing and everything like that, due to the fact that it's in a really nice neighborhood?
Probably, yeah.
That's what
it's all, because it's like, if that was a $150,000 house,
they wouldn't care. But I mean, you look at that neighborhood, there's $500,000 houses all over the place.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's actually a very valid. I never thought of it that way, but I think that is, like, it's a valid reason, because generally speaking, a majority of the population, if the average price point is $225 and this is $410,000,
right,
they want to make sure that it's a quality product.
Absolutely. So that being said, with that, I mean, it's been a headache, and I mean,
it is. Like, I can't even
think of how many times you and I have just went up there, and even like myself, we've spent, I would say, me alone, I probably spent like 2 weeks worth of labor in that house.
Oh,
I know.
easy.
That's what I just think about that. I'm like, okay, and we're still going to be profitable, so that's a positive. That's like buying at a deep discount, biggest thing that you can do. And then obviously with the lender relationship that we have on that side, they were able to extend the loan for us because we're coming up on that due date. So they extend that. So that's another positive that we gain from it. But those large projects, especially a distance away, you either want to underwrite so conservatively that if you get it, it's like, perfect, we can deal with this. But if you don't get it, it's not a big deal. And ideally, like, there's multiple screw ups that I had in the process, and we're talking a year and a half worth of experience later that I'm looking back on this and the jobs that we've done now that I learned from that. Should we have bought it? Probably not. But again, if you can squeak out a profit and still sustain, I think you're all right. But again, dealing with those inspectors, it's better to be like, we had a guy there who no longer works for us, but when you're combative with the inspectors, it makes things that much worse. And you don't get anywhere.
Yeah. That's the last thing you want to do is piss off an inspector.
Correct.
Especially when you're, I guess, going through the rehab process, or even like the finish up, and everything like that. There's no reason to start bad mouthing an inspector or anything like that. They're going by the books on their end. Yeah. The best thing that you can do, and the one thing that I've learned, is just be friendly with them.
Correct.
They'll be more than willing to just point out things, be like, hey, I'm supposed to like mark this down, or like basically wait for you guys to list it here. Yeah. But if you're able to, fix these two things, I'm fine with basically checking you off and just make sure that's done.
Yeah.
And that's even the thing too with him. He just was, my work is perfect no matter what it is. And I mean, I even remember you and I having to go up there and we had to cut out nails and screws from the joists.
Yeah. It was,
a lot of headaches could have been avoided there had he had not been a asshole to the inspectors.
Well, and I don't even know if that is the issue. It also comes down to hiring the right people to do the job, and then making sure it's done properly to begin with. Because there's things even on that job that I'm like, fuck, like if the stuff was done properly, we could have avoided all of this.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that just come up after the fact that you're like, okay, I wasn't aware of this. None of the people that were working on the job site were really aware of this. But now it's brought to our attention. The inspector noticed something, so we have to take care of those items. And if that continually happens, then probably we should have thought about replacing the people working on the job site sooner. But again, you're when you're a distance away and you're finding people to travel or sourcing contractors locally, it's such a difficult process. And if the people who do a lot of job sites for you in your local area, if they're willing to travel, that much better. But if they're not, then
and you're finding new people, and
every single time
the fact that they are going to have just as quality of work as the people you have back home.
Correct.
And that's part of the battle too, is just like finding people that you can trust and not have to have to hold their hand the entire time. I mean, I just thankfully now we have a very solid group of people who we don't need to sit there and reinvent the wheel with them every day. It's just, if someone has a question for me, it's very simple, and we have problem solvers, which is half the battle. And I mean, trying to find a good subcontractor like that, or even one who's willing to listen to you. Yeah.
And we don't know everything, and the inspectors don't know everything, but just taking like all considerations in, and then brainstorming, finding a solution to the problem. Because that's, they want a solution. They want the job site done. Obviously, it's not like it's a thorn in their side as well. It's been a thorn in their side for a very long time. So like the quicker we can get it done, the more it's going to help them. The more it's going to help us, the less cost that we have into it. So it's just reflecting on those things and adjusting strategy to accommodate that. And again, on Joe and I's side, offering lower because of that fact. Yeah. It's like, hey, we've dealt with this in the past. I don't really want to deal with it anymore. It's not worth it to me. So
and that's the one thing I think bites us in the butt, is when we do purchase properties that are so far away, you know, going past that hour long drive. And I mean, it pretty much seems like almost every property that is farther out, if we're not able to find contractors, it's us 3 year
it's
someone that are all going up
I know.
And spending our time to go work on these properties, when in reality we should, you know, be trying to hire contractors, but because we can't find reliable contractors, that load falls on us. And it's like, well, you know, we can trust ourselves 100%. So the only solution at this point, because
it's just to go and get it done.
Yeah, because it's taking so long, is just to go do it ourselves.
Yeah, and I mean, even with you and I, when we headed to that West Bend property, it was the 11th hour. We practically
for the installation. The morning
we practically got that done.
Yeah,
just barely. You and I squeaked out of there.
Yeah, probably like a half hour before they came in.
Yeah. That was like short notice on that, and it's also to the fact of like most contractors don't want to do the small jobs.
Yeah,
like it's And I understand that. Like, is it worth their time? Not necessarily. Like, it's like, hey, we can afford to pay you $750 to do this. It's like, well, why would I take myself or my guys off my job to do this for such a minuscule amount of money? And it can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing, but kind of establishing, especially if you're heavy into the flipping or rentals, you have a little bit of leeway because it might not be as urgent, but the flips, having that crew established beforehand, or at least a crew that can do multiple different things, is an absolute game changer. And that's where just planning things out. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm just kind of had a thought here. So in the areas that now we're kind of looking at marketing, you know, down in Milwaukee kind of area and stuff like that, I guess what we should probably be doing right now, because we haven't locked up any deals just yet, start reaching out to even other investors that have reliable crews and contractors. Get in contact with people that can work on these projects for us, or do like the little things like, you know, go in, paint a couple rooms, maybe lay down some flooring, that's it. I think that would be probably the smartest thing for us, just looking ahead. And
I agree.
From what we've struggled with in the past, it's way harder to close on a property, and then you're just trying to find someone to work on it. And then if you don't,
that's smart.
Within the first couple of weeks, it's like, well, time's ticking. We gotta go down there ourselves.
That's actually really smart. It's let's do that.
Why is it?
I know.
Why haven't we thought about it? I don't know.
Exactly. But it's having conversations like this, then you can establish, even if it's just like a list of people that like, hey, let's just call these people. Let's go over these things. Just let them know that, hey, we don't have any projects right now, but can we reach out to you in the future if we run across something or have something? And that'll just make if we end up having to do even the small things, we have them to call.
Right.
And we can count on them. And we're starting to build out a few of those relationships. Like now down in the Madison area, we have a decent painter. We have a decent flooring guy. So we can count on those. But do we have an electrician? No, we don't. Do we have a plumber? Nope. No. So like even establishing those small relationships, I think will go a long, long way. And that's actually very valid. And we should build out some sheets for that, because otherwise we're just reinventing the wheel every single time.
And then at least we can, even if those contractors are busy, you know, a lot of those contractors have, you know, are in basically networks where they know other plumbers, other electricians, maybe even people that aren't exactly in their field, but are in trades in general with the house flipping business. You know, they'll have some idea on, okay, you know, my quality work is held pretty high.
Correct.
The people that I deal with and work with on the side are also, you know, have that high quality finish. And you can trust them and take my word on that. So at least you can get those, you know, words of mouth and everything like that. And just kind of go from there. I think that's something that we should start doing, because that's the biggest thing when it comes to distance, you know, properties that we purchase that are farther out. When we decide, okay, instead of doing what we're hoping is, you know, buy, resell, or wholesale it to someone else. If that's not the problem, it's like, okay, we actually are going to probably make even more money if we actually, you know, fix a couple things. But fixing those few things, if we're spending our time going down then it takes forever.
It doesn't even make sense. And that's like, I think we've gotten a little lucky and unlucky in certain cases, but a little lucky with some of the recent ones that are far away, like not including the Wausau one, that they've been very, very light renovation that we can get away with. Not necessarily get away with bad things, but get away with not having to do nearly as much because they're newer construction.
But that's how it should be. Because we should not be taking on those big projects. Those are the ones to wholesale.
Yeah, exactly. It's just offer low. Like and that's like kind of, and we'll transition here shortly into kind of what the month looks like so far, where the deals have come from. So you guys stay tuned for that. But with that is like, just there's nothing wrong with, okay, you get so many at-bats when it comes to putting deals under contract. And what I worry about, and what most investors worry about, or most people marketing for deals, is, hey, am I going to get another one? Am I going to get another opportunity? So they try to make the most out of every single one, which that's exactly what we should be doing, but not to the detriment of the business in general. So if like we're working so hard to put a deal under contract and the numbers are very, very thin. It's like, why are we doing this?
Why? Yeah.
We're adding an added amount of stress that just doesn't make sense versus the ones that are, hey, we're underwriting this at a $30,000 profit without doing anything. It's like, well, that's a no-brainer. Or a $25,000 profit, or whatever the case is, whatever the margin is that you want to make. But when you don't do that, or if it's a $25,000 project, but it's a $85,000 renovation, it's like, fuck, that's a stupid idea. And the more I learn on that, the better we seem to get at just coming away with a quick profit and kind of making that transition now. And some of the recent deals, it's like, okay, we had one down in the Fond du Lac area that we sold off, made a quick, it'll probably be 20,000 or whatever the case is.
Right.
Easy deal. That one in Plymouth. I think Aaron's going to be buying that one. That's probably a quick $20,000 to $25,000 profit. No work. So the more we can do with that, the Sun Prairie one, ideally, if that comes to the finish line, that'll be a lot larger profit. So that'll be a good payday for everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
We won't disclose numbers yet, but that one seems to be very, very promising. But again, they're very quick turnarounds, transitions of buying and reselling and not sitting. And the more we sit on them, the less enjoyable the business becomes, I think.
And the longer, I mean, for like a lot of the flips that we end up working on, I feel like when they do run into, extending from 2, 3, 4 months, long projects, the profit is probably the same, if not almost less than what we would have made if we just wholesaled it. And like, that's where I think we're shooting ourselves in the foot because, having maybe trying to shoot for like that 30,000, 35,000, flip profit. When something does go wrong, it's not a cheap thing that,
it never is.
Like
it's
that.
never cheap.
So that's where it definitely, those projects said, okay, it's a easy couple things that need to get done. Yes. Perfect flip. Do that. Unless like we have something that's maybe a bigger project. We're trying to keep people busy, but yet obviously have that margin of profit even larger, just in case of, running into
missed items,
bigger issues. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of what we're running into on Michigan right now. I mean,
well, and I actually, honestly, I think we're going to come out extremely well on that project. Like it needs a shit ton of work and everything like that. But the numbers are so, like we ran them fairly conservatively in the market. Like it'll be peak market when we go to list that place. So I'm like, I don't know. And it's close to town. All of our guys are from the Oshkosh area. They're turning it like the inside. I was in there yesterday afternoon. I'm like, shit, we're at the stage of hanging doors right now. We're doing trim work. We're doing all these different things.
Yeah, all the trim is painted and ready to go. The frames are up around the doors, or the door trim is. And excuse me, literally all we have left to do is the basement to get fixed and cabinets to get hung. And then flooring's in, and then we're just gonna
and then it's finish work. So it's like when you look at that, again, it's a 3-bed, 1-bath ranch. It's a simple house versus like an old fucking 1900s 2-story that we run into plumbing issues. Then we run into electrical issues because nothing's up to code and everything's all like knob and tube wiring or all these other miscellaneous things. It's like, hey, I don't really know if I want to take that risk to do that type of project versus just turning and burning some of these places. I would rather make 5,000 or 10,000 on a very quick turn than 30,000 for a 7-month project. It doesn't make sense when you kind of pencil it out and then the cash conversion of things. But I don't know, I guess from the number standpoint. So obviously right now, and Brennan, you might not have a ton of insight on this, but that's fine.
Probably not.
But so far this year, the deal count, direct mail has not been hitting. Joe and I were just discussing that the other day, and we've been sending out mail like every single week, and hardly any calls are coming in. It could just be the beginning of the year style things.
It's usually, I think right now, getting someone that's living in a house to, I guess, reach out wanting to sell their property around this time of the year is pretty slow and not very likely. It's definitely something to kind of take a step back, and I think I have an idea on who we should really be marketing to, which are those absentee, pretty much homes and the ones where there's basically the landlords that have, properties that are in distress and, have bad tenants, things like that. So maybe looking at those eviction notices and stuff to start mailing out to those just in the meantime might be helpful.
And it's like, we're not talking, like, I know that the big thing is, okay, we're pulling a list of absentee owners. It's 1,500 people or 2,000 people. And for those of you that don't know, absentee owners are just people who don't currently occupy the property, whether it's a tenant or it's a vacation house or whatever the case is. But mailing those people, we've been almost strictly focused on that. We did include some high equity lists in there. That never seems to work out very well for us.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's just kind of hit and miss there. But then we were discussing even the other day of like, okay, we haven't been getting a great return from postcards. We got quite a few deals from letters. So we switched completely, to the letters side of things in hopes. And those are literally just hitting this week. So if something comes up, then great. But again, that's the first mailing in a series of 4. So you have to take it all with a grain of salt because some of these people have never heard from us before. So
how were we looking at back when I was doing probates?
Yeah. And it's how?
How were we doing with that, or did any hit?
Nothing.
I don't think
nothing.
We've gotten a single thing.
So and that's like, again, the thing, but we were sending them, they might have gotten, I think, some letters, some postcards, but it never came to fruition. So that it's discouraging when you look at it from that side of things. I know people are pulling deals left and right from it, but it's that singular focus of, okay, where is our time best spent? Is it narrowing down these lists and mailing these people? And then you run into the issue of, well, the mailing companies want a minimum of 500. It's like, well, shit, that's the 20 evictions that come in over the course of 3 weeks.
Right.
Isn't going to be close to that, or the probates or whatever the case is. So then you're continually expanding that search outward, growing a further distance away from home. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But
I think at one point you had me hitting probates for Columbia County, Dane County.
Well, and everything, because it's like we couldn't build up enough people on a list. Like you just have to go further out.
I was gonna say, like, obviously there, I guess around here in the Fox Valley, specifically, like Appleton's very tough when it comes to county records.
Very.
Just to reliable. A lot of it is hit or miss. Like you were saying, where evictions, maybe there's only 20, and then within 3 weeks.
Yeah, correct.
Instead of trying to we gotta hit that mark of 500 different properties. Like, is there a better way than just throwing in just random kind of I guess addresses in there, just so we can kind of hit that mark and really.
Should we? Are you saying should we do that?
Yeah, should we, or is there a better way to, or maybe not better way, but a different type of list that we should be, I guess, targeting to try and group up together and then be able to market to those 500 versus we're really trying to hit these 20, but we're mailing 480 other property owners that really we don't really care if they respond or not.
Well, and I think like the nice part about mailing is like you can mail, whether it's Appleton and Green Bay and Madison and Milwaukee, you can all have them on the same list. And now, like in those Madison and Milwaukee markets, it's absentee owned. It's strictly absentee owned. And the issue in the Valley is there's only so many absentee owned properties, and a lot of investors are hitting them, which is fine. And
we've already hit
almost
all of them too.
Yeah,
so.
we've mailed them all already. So then they just keep getting mailers from us, and they keep getting mailers, and then they'll reach out. Mail is all about timing. So if they see your letter or postcard at the right time, in the right place, in the right state of mind, then they'll reach out. If they don't, so be it. But that is kind of the difficulty that you run into versus like the online stuff. They're out there searching for you, or they're inquiring, or whatever the scenario might be. And that's where like all of our deals so far have come from the online, whether it's Facebook ads. I think we've done, one deal from Facebook ads in January, 2 from search engine, and then 1 from Google.
Okay.
So it's all online based so far in January as far as contracts go. Now the cost per deal is obviously up there, but over the course of a year's time or whatever, it kind of evens out, and that's why we have the marketing mix like we do. But I think the consistency thing is the most important. And I know in the latter part of the year, I felt like our mail fell off a tiny bit. Like we weren't staying as consistent with it. And that's probably, again, 90 days later, it's January, we're seeing the results from that.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's just staying on top of it. And now for like the next 3 months, we have mail in place. But we should also still consider adding, again, how can we add those probates in? How can we add the foreclosure leads? How can we add the eviction leads or divorce or whatever the case is?
Or even looking at other ways to, I guess, bring in leads. Maybe it's not just making more lists. Maybe it's, talking to specific types of people where they might be having, people that are calling them on certain issues and being in contact with those individuals that, they're putting our name out there, giving our information to homeowners that are going through a specific situation.
Correct.
And then you're able to, get deals that way without even have to, doing any sort of marketing or paying for anything. It's that relationship building.
Possibly even going down to the courthouse in different counties. I mean, I'm not sure how the state of Wisconsin does it, but I mean, I think for Winnebago County, we're second Tuesday of every month we do foreclosure sales. I mean, it could be something that we could go to together and just see like, hey, this is what
I've looked into the auction stuff.
This is actually a valid point. I'm glad you brought that up. So Jake, who bought the Fond du Lac one from us.
Oh yeah.
So he picked up, his current residence and then another one he's picking up at sheriff's sale. So he attended the sheriff's sale. He was very familiar with the values and everything like that. And he bought it from sheriff's sale.
Really?
And and there's deals to be had. Now, of course, you have to be careful and you have to.
Well, you have to know your numbers and know, set yourself at, I'm not going over $100,000. As soon as it goes above 100, I'm out.
Yep.
And
that's, I think if you, tough. I know that's exactly. And then you have other people there and then there's a little bit more competition, but there is deals to be had. And we speak about it from the side of things of like, hey, we're consistently locking up properties every single month versus like the person who isn't. They're like, well, how do I even get like 1 or 2 deals across my plate? But it's just a different phase in the business cycle of how to make things a little bit more efficient. And I don't think there's a specific one size fits all, but
that's a easy way for, someone that's just beginning is going to the courthouse, pulling those, lists, and then also going to those auctions or sheriff sales. Obviously run your numbers and do your research prior to going to those. Because typically there'll be those addresses and properties will be up online prior to that. And then, going there and just, if anything, just sitting in and just seeing how the process works and what other investors are doing. And it probably would be a good place to do networking.
That's exactly it. So, we should almost make that a priority, whether it's
let's do it.
Yeah. Like just attending the sheriff's sales, not necessarily that you need to bid on anything, but just meeting the people there.
Yeah. Just
it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to one?
Yeah. I actually got to participate in one.
But just going there and then watching how the banks operate and what they do. And there's not a ton of foreclosures right now, but I'm sure there'll be more. There's always more. At some point. So just adjusting strategy and going from there. But I don't know, was there anything else that was top of mind in either of your guys' minds right now?
Yeah, let's get out of rental properties and just focus on storage units.
Yeah. Well, actually to that point, so you brought up a valid point. And I don't know if it's necessarily the storage units, but that property we bought, that triple net property, it's like the more I think about that, and for those of you that don't know, and then even Brennan informed you, so like a triple net lease on a place means that the tenant is responsible for repairs, maintenance, taxes. They have to carry insurance, utilities, snow plowing, lawn, literally everything.
Yeah.
And then you just own the building. So they lease it back from you. So that property, is the return on investment great? Maybe, maybe not. But it's so simple. Like I literally drive by it probably once a week. Have you ever even driven by it?
I'm probably drive by it today. I just thought about it because I was thinking about that.
Where it's at.
Yeah, so it's on County Road A in Neenah.
Yeah,
and it's just an commercial electric building. Is the people that are in there, they operate an electric company or contracting company. But for them, they're paying however much money per month, and then I let them know. I'm like, hey, the we got insurance quotes back. The insurance is obviously a lot higher than what was previously on the property just because rates are increasing crazily or really, really rapidly. Sorry. And with that, I just sent them the monthly payment. They tack that onto their rent. Done and over with.
Really?
Yep.
No, fuck. That seems so easy.
It's so easy. And that's where I'm like, okay, I see how the rentals, the single family rentals and duplexes and everything like that are worth it.
I think they're a stepping stone.
It's a stepping stone. It is definitely a stepping stone. And the more I think about that, I'm like, that is the lifestyle business that like everyone would want to pursue. And I think even if the return on investment's minimal, it's not necessarily that we need the cash now from the rental properties, but in 15 years from now or 20 years from now, if the property's paid off, like shit, that's a totally different game. And we're all young. So in 15 or 20 years from now, it's like whatever, you're middle-aged at that point.
Probably 46.
I know. But still, like, think of if you had one of those paid off.
Don't say that.
Yeah. But even one of those properties paid off that maybe makes you, we'll say, $6,000 a month. $6,000 a month without having to do anything.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Correct. And it's like, you don't, whether you get up from bed, whether you go into work or whatever the case is, you have that coming in. And there might be some big expenses such as a roof or whatever. That's not included. So you could set aside some money for budgeting. But still, like it's...
So you mean to tell me that I can sit at my kitchen counter and play video games all day?
Yes.
Eat Pop-Tarts, strudels.
I know.
And play Warhammer 40K. Yeah. You're telling me I can do that?
Exactly. That's exactly.
A lot better than what I'm doing.
Well, I know. And but I think about that, and I was thinking about that on my drive today. I'm like, okay, the storage units, management intensive. And we've automated actually a lot of that. So it's not nearly as bad anymore.
Yep.
I'm still... Hey, you're still getting calls. You're still collecting rent. You're still responsible to lock people out, send notices, whatever the case is.
And if we could, I would say we switch to an all digital way of doing it.
It is right now. That's what we did switch to that. So they get automatic texts. They get automatic emails like, hey, you're past due. It goes out to their phone. It notifies them right away. And then it says, hey, your unit's locked out. You haven't paid rent. And now it's sending them, hey, go to the website, call us at this phone number to pay your rent.
Oh, I was just going to say with even like a credit card and stuff too. And when you want to like tell people that we're not taking your checks, we're not taking your cash anymore. We're going to just strictly do it with credit cards. Yeah. And if that is a problem, you can leave. We will find someone else to take your spot and we don't care.
Well, you just have to be careful on that is in the reality, that is the easiest way to do it. But when you have tenants who were there previously and then you take over the facility, it's a little bit more difficult. And then you also, like some of the population for some of the facilities we have, they don't have bank accounts. So, like, what do you do if they don't have a bank account?
They're financial problems that are not ours.
Well, if you need to fill the units, then they definitely are ours.
No.
I guess.
So it's just, but then again, it's
I guess you're
buying properties in those.
I am, so.
But buying properties in those areas. Do you buy them in those areas or do you not? That's the simple factor. Yeah. But again,
well, it depends on who owned them before us too. Correct. I think that plays a big part into
it's huge.
I mean, I don't know if it was you or Dad told me that one lady just had like everything tracked in her head and like not even on paper. And I'm like,
almost all those, a lot of the owners are.
Yep. The fuck.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. I think the biggest, like where the mind shift has to come from is, you definitely like starting with those properties that are, maybe single family, little 2-bed, 1 bath lower, and then uppers of 1 bed, 1 bath, like those types of duplexes and things like that. Like, I think those are great properties to get your first, second, third, fourth properties. But the way to look at it is that's not where you want to keep on buying like those properties. Those are stepping stones to then get them occupied, get them cash flowing, and then either refinance or basically stabilize them and then sell them and 1031 exchange them into the next bigger property where now you're buying a side-by-side that barely needs any work. Yeah, you might not be making as much, cash flow, but the equity is going up.
It's a higher quality.
It's a higher quality. And then it's just you're kind of jumping up the ladder to then that, net, triple net property.
Well, and what has me thinking on, like we always, in my mind and I've struggled with this for a long time of, okay, doing deals locally, buying big properties locally. And then we've slowly expanded outward. We're branching into different parts of the state. But with those triple net properties, like if you have the down payment, if you have the funds, couldn't you buy in frickin' North Carolina?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You're just buying and then you could broaden that market to something drastic because, okay, we're not responsible for the lawn care. We're not responsible for the maintenance on the interior of the building or whatever the case is. You might have to have certain, again, service providers in place to help out.
Right.
But for the most
who's
part,
to say we can't call like a local plumber in North Carolina or something like that and be like, hey, do us a solid here.
Yeah.
We're in Wisconsin. There's no way we're jumping on a plane to get to you.
And at that point, but I'm just thinking from the side of things of you're only limited by your creativity or your ability to reach out to people. Because you could have at that point, it's like, okay, we have a go-to plumber in North Carolina, and I'm just using that for example, that if there's a plumbing issue, call these people. That's it. We're completely hands off. Maybe we have to pay a bill or whatever. But
plus you probably would, the way that I would want to do it too is you're going to be buying, if you're buying out of state, you're buying in, I guess, booming markets and a higher populated, like a Milwaukee, Madison type of area versus, something that's, a Fond du Lac or, somewhere like Stevens Point. That's like a small, like
Atlanta, St. Louis.
Like you're buying in larger areas where there are a lot more contractors and subcontractors that you can work, I guess, on building those relationships with and are going to have a lot more years of experience versus, someone that's
a 500 city or a 500 population city.
Yeah.
Like you're avoiding those altogether.
Exactly.
Because it just doesn't pencil out. So that's actually interesting. I would,
I've been saying that's
I know
for a while.
Well, it's even the fact of, okay, you don't necessarily need to buy out of state to accomplish that.
No.
Because I think there's a shit ton of those properties in state, but it's just changing the mindset of, okay, we're going to not totally switch focus to that, but add, okay, we're doing this. We're doing the wholesaling, the flipping, the whatever deals, going down this path. And then we're doing a few marketing to those bigger property owners. And it's just a tacked on sort of thing. And then if Brennan needed to go do on-site inspections or whatever the case is, he could do that, or we could do that, or whatever. You could have anyone at that point do it, but I don't know, it just gets me thinking. Let
me kind of throw like this scenario out.
Yep.
So say you find like maybe 5 properties throughout the whole like Wisconsin area, triple net, and the ROI is like, I don't know, I guess, or like the cap rate would be 6-7%.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be maybe more advantageous to look even like say out of state where you're able to find a property that might have a 10-12% cap rate, and it's a lot farther out, but you're able to find 5 of those properties scattered throughout the states.
Well, it would of course make more sense, but it's finding those.
Right.
I think
comes down to
reality, it's a little bit harder.
Comes down to like researching what areas, what towns are booming, and more like development and everything like that. That's where like that type of researching comes into play. You have to kind of be on the lookout. Okay, I'm noticing, say, somewhere in Arizona, a lot of population is growing like over here. That's where maybe you want to buy triple net properties if it's, at that higher cap rate versus obviously if it's still a 5%, then obviously just stay around here.
Yeah. And I think the nice part about when you're local to Wisconsin and you're buying throughout Wisconsin, you can have that camaraderie with the owner. You can build the rapport a little bit better because then they can relate. And a lot of people from the Midwest are more relatable than people from the coasts.
Correct.
At least from what I've seen in the interactions that I've had. It's just a different demeanor altogether. So you have that to consider. But I don't know, when you start opening your mind to the fact of, okay, it doesn't need to be hyper local unless you're doing certain types of business models. But
and basically the triple net, it's like a bank for our money, for the money for the business and everything. It's not so much you're you're just buying these to try and get rich.
Yep.
It's a place to, obviously you'll get rich, or I shouldn't say you'll get rich, because it's not 100%.
Over time.
Over time you'll make your money, make a lot of money basically. But it's somewhere where after flipping a bunch of houses and wholesaling, those proceeds then we, transfer into then purchasing these bigger properties that are triple net. You don't have to worry about it. There's no hassle behind it. And plus that money's making babies basically. And making more money. Correct. Versus sticking it back into another flip that then you'll have to pay more taxes. Like, it's a way to obviously mitigate your taxes and everything like that, and just basically have a constant reoccurring wheel of money coming in.
And I think for the most part, you're buying the lease that's in place.
Yes.
So as long as it's an established company, the downside risk is fairly minimal. But
would you buy anything like say if that commercial property didn't have anybody in it? Would you be as tempted to?
Oh, it's way more difficult. That's kind of the downside risk, because
it's a new I guess element to the whole.
Correct. And we haven't experienced that.
No, we haven't.
So I can't. But then you're talking about, okay, you're with that one. We'll specifically go. So if that tenant ever moves out, you have the thing of, okay, we need to remodel the place.
Yep.
Because they had smoked in there, or they probably still smoke in there, which is insane. They smoke in their office building.
Yeah.
So
how have you not said something to them about that?
But it's been like that. So it's not like it's anything new. But even on that side of things,
tell a 6-year-old guy to stop smoking. He's been smoking there for 10 years.
Yeah. So but from that side of things, we have the ability to go in, remodel it. The exterior, if you drive by, you'll notice what I mean by this, but should the exterior be repainted? Yes. Like it'll have to be repainted if they ever decide to move out or whatever the case is, just to make it nicer. But even if you stick 20,000 in or 25,000 in, you could probably bump up the lease rate by an exponential amount.
Oh yeah.
100% most likely.
Yeah.
Like you could double the rent. So you have those things, but can you financially withstand 4 months or 6 months of no rent and footing the mortgage? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the downside risk. So only time will tell. But you guys want to talk about anything else, or should we wrap it there?
I guess I spoke my piece about.
Yeah, I know. I'm
rental properties.
Yeah, getting out of the rental property. And I agree with you 100%, because it's everything always seems better than what reality actually is. And the more you experience it, maybe the more you want to do it or the less you want to do it. Yeah. I'm kind of on the latter.
Comes down to whether you have bad experiences or good experience. I
mean, I just think of all the rental properties we've had to deal with and what we currently have.
Yeah.
And honestly, is it the fact that I have to go to, say, a showing late and skip jujitsu or not skip a Saturday with my wife for a couple hours instead of hitting the gym right away? Yeah, it sucks because I like to start my morning off that way. But at the same time, it's like you're going to sit there for potentially 2 hours with no one showing up. And then, or you get one person walking through your property and they're like, yeah, I'm not interested. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, look, if you're not interested, let me know right away because I'm not going to waste your time and I'm certainly not going to waste mine.
Yeah.
And it's either a yay or a nay, and then going through the background application process and trying to get a hold of people. And it's just...
It's a headache.
Almost more of a headache than it's worth at some points. And I get it that you delegate that to me, which is fine.
Well, we have a property manager for a lot of that as well.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things that you're not doing that they're doing. So
yeah, but I'm just saying, just when in general, when I do the showings and stuff.
Oh, it's a lot. Yeah. That's why I don't do them anymore.
I mean, I just think of how many times I've went to showings with you. And it's just like, why the fuck am I here? I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to deal with people. It's like I haven't even finished my cup of coffee yet this morning.
So, well, we'll end it there. Appreciate you guys watching. If you enjoyed the conversation, drop a comment down below. We will see you guys in the next one.